Greetings. Thank you for joining the Society for Neuroscience webinar, the ABCs of BAW, Brain Awareness Week. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. You can listen to the webinar via your computer speakers or dial in using the telephone number provided on the screen. To resize the presentation, click and drag the lower right-hand corner. You can type your questions into the question box at any time during the webinar, and we'll address these questions after the presentations. The webinar recording and the resource materials will be available on sfn.org/webinar archives within 48 to 72 hours. So I'm Nick Spitzer. I'm a professor of biology at the University of California in San Diego, and have the pleasure of directing the Kavli Institute for Brain and Mind here. I'm also the editor-in-chief of BrainFacts.org. Today, we'll be talking about Brain Awareness Week, or as we call it, BAW. This is a wonderful global campaign to increase public understanding of neuroscience and to advocate for science funding. It was started by the Dana Foundation in 1996, so it's been going for quite a while, and Kathleen will talk more about the history in a few minutes. We're going to be talking about ideas that will help you plan events and activities about the brain for the public. Throughout this webinar, we will provide helpful resources and links, and then answer any questions you may have about BAW. Before I turn it over to the speakers, I would like to quickly introduce BrainFacts.org as a valuable resource for BAW event planning. BrainFacts.org is a public information initiative from the Kavli Foundation, the Gatsby Charitable Foundation, and the Society for Neuroscience that contains a wide range of accessible, scientifically vetted information about the brain and the nervous system. The site seeks to inform the public about the progress and promise of brain research and also to dispel some amazing, very common myths about the brain. As you can see here, BrainFacts.org has a terrific editorial board whom I rely on to vet the materials that we publish on the site. We also provide content that's produced by a number of valuable partners, including the Dana Foundation and several NIH institutes. For those organizing Brain Awareness Week activities, BrainFacts.org provides many useful resources. I'd like to draw attention first to the BrainFacts book. This was really what we used back in Outreach 1.0 in the 20th century. Now we're in the 21st century, of course, so we're on the web. But you can download the BrainFacts.book to learn about the brain. We also have educator pages with credible resources from around the web in a variety of different formats, all searchable by both grade level and topic. Then we have a series of brain awareness videos. These are videos that have been submitted in a contest every year now for the past few years that are really terrific. Engaging people on a variety of very interesting topics. We also have opportunities to ask an expert a question about the brain, and we have opportunities for people to meet researchers, senior scientists, younger scientists, people across the span, so that we can see the personal face on the research that's being done. If we could advance the slide here, this is Lauren Frank, a noted researcher at UCSF, making sense of memory. We also have several forms of social media that we find very useful in engaging the public. We have a Facebook presence, we're on Twitter. It's really remarkable, and we're very engaged here. So toolkits available on the webinar page at sfn.org/webinars will further help you to plan a BAW event on a neuroscience topic that's of interest to you and to the public. I'll now turn the webinar over to Kathleen Rowena, the BAW Campaign Director at the Dana Foundation. Kathleen will introduce Brain Awareness Week and provide you with resources to help you get involved.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be here today. I'd like to begin by telling you a bit more about what Brain Awareness Week is. Brain Awareness Week, or BAW, is the global campaign to increase public awareness of the progress and benefits of brain research. Every March, BAW unites the efforts of partner organizations in a week-long celebration of the brain. Partners include colleges and universities, hospitals, K-12 schools, outreach and advocacy groups, government agencies, and professional organizations. The Dana Alliance founded BAW in 1996 to bring together these diverse groups and unite them with the common theme that brain research is the hope for treatments, preventions, and possibly cures for brain diseases and disorders. During BAW, partners organize creative and innovative activities in their communities to educate and excite people of all ages about the many wonders of the brain and nervous system. Activities include lectures and panel discussions, displays at hospitals, community centers, libraries, and shopping malls, presentations at K-12 schools, lab tours at research institutions, brain fairs with interactive activities, experiments, and demonstrations, and much, much more. In 2013, BAW events reached well over 500,000 people in 58 countries and 42 states. This year, we hope to have an even greater global impact, and we will with your help. I hope many of you listening today will join the effort and participate in the 19th Annual Brain Awareness Week, which will take place from March 10th through the 16th. So how do you get involved? Well, your first step is to become a BAW partner. You can register online at dana.org/BAW. Next, participate in the campaign. Organize an activity in celebration of Brain Awareness Week. And finally, provide feedback. Post your activities on the BAW calendar of events and submit a post-campaign partner report. But why should you become a BAW partner? Well, because you'll gain access to free resources and services to assist you in planning and promoting your BAW activities. They're all available on the BAW website, but some are accessible to registered BAW partners only. And it's these partners-only resources and services that I'd really like to focus on today. To take advantage of them, you have to keep us informed about how you celebrate BAW in your community. But by doing so, you're contributing to BAW's continued success. All of the feedback we receive is posted on the BAW site and becomes a resource for all partners to use in developing their programs. So what are the partners-only resources? The first is the BAW calendar of events, which promotes partners' activities. The calendar itself is publicly available on the BAW site, but only partners can post activities. And why take the time to post your activities on the calendar? Well, it's a free means to publicize your events. The calendar is used by members of the public and media to find BAW events in their area. It's also a useful resource for you and your fellow partners to get ideas for events, see what other events are happening in your area so you don't duplicate efforts, and find opportunities for collaboration. And once you post an activity, you can place a materials order, which is the next resource I'd like to talk about. Partners can order free bulk quantities of BAW promotional materials and Dana Alliance publications for distribution at events. You'll find detailed descriptions and PDFs of the materials available on our website, but here's just a quick overview. There are BAW stickers, buttons, and very popular pencils with brain-shaped erasers. The mind-boggling series of booklets for K-12 students. There are 3 titles in this series, one for elementary school, middle school, and high school students. The Staying Sharp series of booklets for older adults. Topics include learning as we age, memory and aging, and late-life brain disorders, getting the facts. There are also Stay Sharp bookmarks to complement the booklets. The Q&A, answering your questions about brain research pamphlet, which is appropriate for high school and up, And finally, Brain Connections, a source guide to information on brain diseases and disorders. Our supplies of these materials are limited, so please be sure to submit your event and place your order as soon as possible so you don't miss out. Another great resource is the partner reports. At the conclusion of each BAW, we collect reports from partners on the results of their activities. And submitting a report is very important because it's an opportunity for you to reflect on the effectiveness of your BAW programs and share your experiences with others. There are more than 850 partner reports posted on our site, and I really encourage you to check them out for some inspiration. They're searchable by event type, audience, and other criteria. They feature descriptions of innovative activities, best practices, and lessons learned. And they provide useful ideas and insights to assist you and other partners in organizing future BAW activities. And the last of the partners-only resources are the downloadable BAW logos and other graphic materials. There are official BAW logos to use on materials you develop, a BAW poster and flyer to use in publicizing your event, and certificates of participation and bookmarks to distribute to attendees. And just to quickly go through some of the additional resources available on our site, there's advice on planning public programs, activity suggestions, outreach tools, including tips for working with the media and reaching your target audience, downloadable materials, including puzzles and coloring sheets. There are networking opportunities with other partner organizations. You can actually search for partners in your area using our partner list, and then email us for contact information. And finally, you can connect with BAW on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Brain Awareness Week. So are you all ready to join us as a partner and participate in the campaign? Well, to help you get started, I'd like to take you through the process of planning a public program and some of the questions you should ask yourself as you put together the details of your event. And I'd like to begin with some advice. First, start planning as early as possible. And second, if you're new to the campaign or getting a late start, keep it simple, because even the smallest of events will have an impact. For example, if you have a child in school, visit your child's classroom and give a presentation about the brain. Set up a display table in a public space, such as a library or community center, and distribute the free BAW campaign materials. If you're a school teacher, order one of the mind-boggling booklets and present it as a classroom activity during BAW. And then next year, when you have more time, you can plan a much larger celebration. So how do you plan a successful event? Your first and most important step is to determine your target audience. Who are you trying to reach and why? Understand the needs and the interests of your audience, because all aspects of event planning are contingent on this choice. Select your topic. Your program will be most successful if you choose a topic of direct benefit to your audience. Also, be sure to accurately assess the scientific literacy of your audience and include information about local resources and services related to your topic. So for example, local hospitals, research facilities, outreach and advocacy organizations, and support groups. That way your audience will know where they can turn within their community for additional information and support. Next, determine your staff needs. Do you have the staff needed to run a successful event, or do you need to recruit volunteers? And be sure to define responsibilities so that staff and volunteers know exactly what's expected of them. Develop a budget and plan accordingly. Do you need to seek outside funding? If so, consider approaching local businesses. They're often looking for ways to promote their involvement in the community and will provide financial assistance in exchange for their name or logo on promotional materials. And don't forget about in-kind donations. Gifts of materials, services such as printing, or event space are very valuable. Consider collaborating with other organizations to share costs and responsibilities. Combining resources may also help attract a larger audience, obtain media coverage, and secure event space, speakers, and volunteers. Be sure to search the partner list and the BAW calendar of events to find partners in your area with whom you might collaborate. Select a format. Some questions to think about. Would your topic be better presented by a single presenter or a panel discussion? Do you want to have audience participation? Will your audience respond well to hands-on demonstrations, lab tours, or other forms of interactive activities? Select a location, keeping the following in mind. Does it work for the event format? Is it geographically well situated for your target audience? And is there adequate parking and public transportation? Then select your date and time. The timing of the event should be determined by what's most appropriate for your target audience. So for example, schedule family events for weekend afternoons, programs for students during the school day, and events for working professionals on weekday evenings. And this is very important. Before finalizing a date, don't forget to investigate other activities or events in your area that may attract the very same audience as your proposed program. Select your speakers. You should review your plans for audience, topic, and format with prospective speakers, and be sure they're comfortable with all of these elements. And select a speaker with good people skills who you know will interact well with your audience. And then work with your speakers to develop the content of the program and prepare them to speak on the audience's level. The more precise you are about the interests of your audience and the message you wish to convey, the more effective your speakers and your program will be. If you'd like local press coverage of your event, develop a media plan to identify your target media outlets and establish a schedule of communication. And for some advice on media outreach, check out the Working with the Media and Media Tools sections of our site. And of course, plan for the day of the event. Some things to think about in advance: room setup, audiovisual needs, signage, handouts and materials, press participation, and photography. And to help your event run smoothly, prepare a script and distribute it to everyone involved. It could be as simple as a timeline that details your event from start to finish. And finally, it's important to close out your event properly. Elicit feedback from your audience. Ask them to complete an evaluation form. Build your audience for future events by asking your attendees to join a mailing or email list. Thank your speakers, co-sponsors, and hosts. And be sure to submit a partner report to share your experiences and insights with others. But even the most well-organized event will not be considered a success if it doesn't draw its anticipated audience. So what are some tips for publicizing your event to your target audience? Highlight your event on your website and in your newsletter. Ask your personal and professional contacts, colleagues, and volunteers to help spread the word. Use social media. It's free and very effective in spreading awareness, publicizing events, and attracting new audiences. Use direct mail, email, and listservs. Send announcements to organizations and individuals you feel might have an interest in your program. Submit your event information to the calendar listings in local newspapers and on local radio and television stations. Distribute flyers or posters to local organizations and businesses for posting on their activity boards or in their windows. For example, libraries, community centers, gyms, and houses of worship. Collaborate with other BAW partners and other local organizations to broaden your outreach and tap into their contacts within your community. Advertise in newspapers, newsletters of related organizations, and other publications that reach your target audience. And finally, of course, don't forget to post your event on the BAW calendar of events. In closing, I hope you'll join us as a partner and take advantage of the many resources and services available from the Dana Alliance to help you plan your celebrations for BAW 2014. Please visit our website, dana.org/BAW, or contact us should you have any questions. We look forward to your participation. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. That was terrific. Lots of tools, lots of good tips, very exciting and very useful. Now we'll hear from Heather McKellar, who runs a very large BAW program at New York University called BRAINY, who will give you some great new ideas for how to expand your involvement in Brain Awareness Week.
So, thank you, Nick. Thanks for inviting me here today, and I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit about the work that we've been doing at BRAINY. So what is BRAINY? It's our We Think Clever title for our outreach branch for the Greater New York City chapter of the Society for Neuroscience. It's a unified effort by academic institutions throughout New York City, including myself at NYU and the NYU Neuroscience Institute, but also Columbia University, Mount Sinai School of Medicine, Rockefeller University, Hunter College, Cornell University, and we seem to keep adding more people as they hear about us, which we're thrilled about. We were supported not just by the Society for Neuroscience chapter, who has been our main uniting factor, but also by the Dana Foundation, and importantly by our individual institutions. It's really important to have that buy-on from each of our universities. And by creating BRAINY, we've created a brand for ourselves and also a platform to increase the impact of our Brain Awareness Week programming. We've created a way to share resources and reach out to cultural and scientific groups throughout the city to best utilize our volunteers and create the most impact for our Brain Awareness Week programming. And while New York City is lucky to have many institutions, both academic and cultural and scientific, all communities have the opportunity for collaboration and partnership. So I'd like to talk to you today about BRAINY as an example for what you can do in your own community. So 2013 was the first year of BRAINY. We really started from scratch, and we organized events, more than 20 throughout the city for all ages. We collaborated with established cultural and scientific groups, including the Bio Bus, which is on the top right, the American Museum of Natural History, Story Collider, which is a science storytelling group, and many other events, many other groups for our events. And we also reached out to groups that were already doing brain or scientific-centric events and help promote their work to try to create a bigger audience for our events. So we had, like I said, we had more than 20 events, but some examples, we had 3 brain fairs, one at NYU, one at Columbia, and one at Mount Sinai. And we really reached different audiences, from the patient population here at the NYU Langone Medical Center to kids in the community in Washington Heights and the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We had workshops at the American Museum of Natural History, which were really popular. We had adult-focused lectures, so some of those at Columbia really were focusing on the research being done at Columbia, but we also had Staying Sharp lectures here at NYU, at the Medical Center, and also at Hunter. Staying Sharp is a great program that's put together by the Dana Foundation that I highly suggest people look into. It's a panel discussion aimed at older adults and discussing ways to remain healthy and what to do when you see signs of decline in older years, and really creating a group of brain advocates for in the public. We also had a number of science storytelling groups. So Story Collider is a live storytelling event that focuses on how science has touched people's lives, but we also collaborated with the Moth, which is at least national, if not international, group that has an NPR podcast, so has a large reach, and they were interested in collaborating with us last year. You can check out the entire list of our events from 2013 on our new website, comebebrainy.com. Right now it'll link you out to our old website, but we're looking to grow that, and you can see what we did last year and also our poster from SFN, the ThemeH poster. So we learned a lot of lessons during BRAINY 2013. We learned that our loose organizational structure worked very well. So we had the leadership from each of our different academic institutions working together to divide the workload, bringing in volunteers, advertising our events with social media and traditional sources of advertisement, and that really helped to create a bigger impact with the minimal amount of work we could. We were able to target a diverse audience. So as Kathleen mentioned, it's important to check out the Dana list of partners and see what other events are going on in your community. Well, by creating Brainy, we already knew what was going on because we were creating all of our events. And we were able to collaborate with groups that already work with the public. By giving ourselves a brand and a bigger name, we were able to reach out to groups and have a bigger impact. We did learn a few lessons. Some things didn't quite work as well as we'd like. We definitely started a little later than we should have. We started about January last year, but we were able to pull off 20 events. So it says that it's not too late to get started now if you haven't already. We were able to use social media, but we're expanding our social media push this year by including Twitter and Instagram. And we're also exploring more traditional media sources such as flyers, email listservs, working with online calendars, that type of thing. And last year we utilized volunteers from multiple institutions to staff our events, and that worked incredibly well. And this year we're just organizing that a little bit better. So for us, what really made the event successful was that we were collaborating between ourselves and the academic institutions, but also with a number of different institutions throughout the city. And I highly suggest starting as early as possible and reaching out now, if you haven't already, to groups within your own community to see if they're willing to do something for Brain Awareness Week this year. So we worked with a number of really great groups, including Nerd Night, which is actually international, so you can look them up and see if they're in your community. And Story Collider, that's another storytelling group. So these are groups that already have events going on throughout the year, and they were just excited to have us be part of their celebration. We provided them with volunteers and free publicity, and so they're more than happy to have us. The other things that are New York City centric, please go back. Go back on the slide. Thank you. Okay, including the Natural History Museum, the Rubin Museum of Art, but I suggest that if you in your own community reach out to your local museums and libraries and cultural institutions and see if they already have programs going on in their educational departments and if they're willing to have brain-centric events going on. I encourage you to reach out to scientific communicators and bloggers, see who already has a large audience and is willing to help you with events or promotions. I'm lucky enough at the NYU Lincoln Medical Center to have really great clinical departments that already have outreach arms to work with. So I've done some collaborations with my clinical folks, so I highly recommend that as another audience to reach out to. And finally, look for groups that already have established audiences. It's a great way to increase the impact of your event. Okay, now it's okay to go on. We used social media quite a bit during Brainy 2013 as our main way to advertise the events that we were promoting, and I highly suggest it's a free and very impactful way to get the word out about your event. You're able to reach a large audience very easily. So we had a Facebook page, which is BRainy NYC, so please check it out. Please like us. I think we're over 300 likes already, so please keep it going. We had a Twitter hashtag last year, and this year we have a Twitter handle and an Instagram account. At the SFN meeting this year, I talked to some kids from the Sidwell Friends School in DC, and apparently Instagram and Twitter are the way to hit high school kids, so it's really important to understand the different platforms and what works best to reach your target audience. And I suggest posting regularly, even before Brain Awareness Week, perhaps throughout the year, to create a following that keeps going so people know to look for you. There are a number of free online tools besides the main social media pages, like Google Sites, that offer the ability for a free online presence that's perhaps easier to manage than a Facebook page. We created our calendar on the Google site last year, and this year we've used a WordPress website, which is also fairly inexpensive, but will hopefully be a little more user-friendly. And I suggest that social media and these websites are a great way to use our important social science communication skills. So it's one of the hot topics today in science, in the science world, and I think it's very important to learn how to talk to the public, and this is one great way to get involved. Okay, you can go to the next one. Thanks. Okay, so I So Brainy really wouldn't have happened without the Greater New York City chapter of SFN, and so I suggest SFN chapters as a great resource. First of all, they're a great way to organize. Second of all, they're great for funding. So there are chapter grants that you can apply for that provide $500 to $2,000 worth of funding, which can be used for chapter activities, including outreach. SFN maintains a database of members in your geographic area, so they're able to do email blasts to reach out to your community for volunteers and also just to publicize your events. And finally, it's a great brand. So between SFN, Brain Awareness Week, and the Dana Foundation, you have 3 great brands to be able to spread the word about the work that you're doing. And you know SFN has about 40,000 members, so you already have a great number of people to start with. So please check out SFN's website for the chapter information. So Brainy has already started planning for BAW 2014. We have about 20 events planned already. We have leaders from all of our different institutions, and we've actually recruited some more people from Cornell this year. And we've revamped our website to the new comebebrainy.com. If you're in the New York City area and interested in being involved in Brainy, please look at our website or our Facebook page or contact us through our email, greaternewyorkcitysfn@gmail.com. But if you're not in New York City and want to be involved in Brain Awareness Week 2014, I encourage you to reach out to your department or an outreach group at your school now and see what is already planned or start planning. You can share your ideas on NeuroOnline, the SFN online site. We already have a couple of really great posts in the Brain Awareness Week group to start the discussion. And it's not too late. We started this time last year and we planned 20 events, so I encourage you all to get involved. One more slide, thanks. But I also want to encourage those of you who can't do something this March to keep in mind that Brain Awareness Week and outreach can be something that goes on year-round. School visits can happen throughout the school year, and SFN has a really great platform to help that out with the Neuroscience Teacher Partner Program. The link is on the webinar. Social media is certainly something that can and should go on year-round, publicizing research, hot topics going on, utilize reposting great things on BrainFacts.org or the Dana blog. There are great science series that are happening throughout the world. I know here in New York City we have one at Columbia called Cafe Science, which brings together scientists in an informal cafe setting to give a little presentation and then open the floor up to the public to ask questions. And it really helps to make science more accessible and something less mysterious, which is important in this day of questioning science. And finally, I encourage the collaborations with science and education groups in your area to occur throughout the year. So the bottom picture here on the slide is our participation in the World Science Festival Street Fair this year, which was a lot of fun and gave us a chance to reach out to a different audience at a different time of year and keep our volunteers active throughout the year. So now I'm going to turn it back to Nick, and he's going to open the floor for questions.
Heather, that was marvelous. I'm impressed by your collaborative organization there. That's really been spectacular, and the breadth and depth of the activities that you all pulled together, really quite remarkable. I like particularly your closing point here about trying to maintain brain awareness year-round. This really is something that we can work on in a continuing way, although, of course, our main focus is in March in Brain Awareness Week. Well, we have a number of questions now. I'd like to start off with one for you, Heather. One of our audience notes that you spoke about the brain fairs and would like to know more about what that involves. What does a brain fair entail? How do you put it on? How do you make that work?
Okay. So we have 3 brain fairs going on during Brainy and BAW 2013, and they sort of had different focuses. So I'll talk a little bit about the one that we had here at the NYU Langone Medical Center. And my goal was to bring together the entire neuroscience community. So I invited people from our basic research labs to our clinical departments to get involved and host a table. And we had everything from the brains from our neuroanatomy class out and our neuroanatomy teacher, as well as graduate students talking to the public about what they were seeing and what was involved with the brain and letting people actually touch a human brain, which is sort of a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We had booths about model organisms, so we had worms and flies under microscopes so people could talk to the researchers who were doing that work and ask them, why would you ever want to look at a worm for neuroscience research? And then we also had people from our clinical departments talking about the work that they were doing, from research to clinical treatments, and really hoping to bring together our entire neuroscience community. Now, the brain fairs at Columbia and Mount Sinai were more aimed at kids, so they had a lot of hands-on activities. A lot of them are available on the Dana website. There's a lot of other really great resources out there, from BrainU.org is a great one, Neuroscience for Kids. There are a lot of activity ideas out there, and I'm sure also at the Dana Partner Report website there's some ideas. But that was really about bringing in school groups and getting them to be involved with these hands-on activities and asking researchers what they were doing and making scientists seem less scary.
Certainly important. We're actually real people.
Yeah.
But I think we have a related question from one of our audience about the budget, Heather. Could you speak a little bit about that? What sorts of budget for science fair activities you experienced?
Right. So our budget was actually fairly minimal. We were very lucky to have Dana help us out with some of the sort of basic things, be it from the table rental and linens. That was honestly, surprisingly, one of the more expensive things. And then the SFN chapter was able to help us out with a lot of the supplies, like pipe cleaners for pipe cleaner neurons and jelly beans for the very famous jelly bean test, and boards so that we could have the trifold science fair boards so that we could present some of the work that we were doing. But then a lot of the other materials came from the lab. They were the brains from the neuroanatomy lab, microscopes that we borrowed and obviously returned. Worms and flies came from some of our invertebrate labs here. So we were able to keep the cost down to a minimum.
Great. That's always helpful. It's great to be able to raise the funds for these good events, but sometimes it can be challenging. Kathleen, a couple of questions for you here. One question is how has BAW grown over the 18 years that the Dana Foundation's been doing this? I imagine that initially it started off as a relatively small enterprise. Now, as you pointed out, it's really massive.
Absolutely. When BAW began in 1996, it was a very modest effort involving just 160 organizations here in the United States. But over the years, we've grown. It became international in 1998, and then since that time has just kind of grown immensely. I can tell you that now, historically, we've had more than 4,100 partner organizations and institutions in 99 countries participate over the years in the campaign.
That's great. And another question for you concerned the reports of activities. Could you say a bit about the timing and the format for those reports? Am I correct in remembering that they can see exemplars of these reports on the Foundation website?
Yes, they're on the Brain Awareness Week website. There is a section called Partner Reports, and on that, basically all of the reports we receive from partners are publicly posted on the Brain Awareness Week website. You actually don't need to be a registered partner to view the reports. So if you're still trying to figure out whether you'd like to join us as a partner, you can visit the reports to get some ideas. And as I said in my presentation, they're searchable by event type, if there's a specific event that you'd like to do, or audience, if there's a particular audience that you'd like to reach. So they're very useful in just coming up with ideas and getting some inspiration.
That's great. Another question here from our viewers, really addressed, I think, both to you, Kathleen, and also to you, Heather. What would be some specific suggestions for activities that will engage elementary kids as young as kindergartners? So these are kids, of course, at the very beginning of their formal educational experience. What would be some good activities to put together for them?
Heather, do you think you
Okay,
have a
sure. Yes,
better?
I have an idea. We're actually doing a kindergarten visit to a school tomorrow, so I know what we're taking. So we are taking lots of pipe cleaners to build pipe cleaner neurons. A kid in kindergarten probably does not know what a cell is, so you have to explain it to them. I always like to use a Lego or building blocks kind of analogy, that the cells are the building blocks of your body, and then they get it and are very excited to build pipe cleaner neurons. And also the five senses. The five senses are something that they know and experience in their daily life. So things like the jelly bean task, where they have to hold their nose and eat a jelly bean and then open their nose and breathe in and see that their smell and taste are intricately linked, and that happens in your brain, something like that. Also optical illusions. They all love optical illusions. Those kinds of things work really well for kids.
And one thing I can add is one of our mind-boggling series of booklets, the mind-boggling workbook, is specifically geared towards like a K through 3, age children, and you can actually view the PDF online, so you can get some ideas from there. And obviously, as Heather said, the senses are covered. I think how to just keep your brain healthy as you age is covered in there. And it gives also just some very basic facts about the brain that would be appropriate for that level.
Great, very nice. Another one of our audience asks, how can we participate in the Society for Neuroscience if we're interested in working with local schools to educate about neuroscience, but are not ourselves neuroscientists? I think this is probably one for all three of us. Let me take a quick shot at it. I think that it's terrific to have people who are not formal neuroscientists involved in this process, and certainly psychologists, cognitive scientists, neurologists. I mean, there are any range of people who are going to know things about the brain and to be eager to communicate them to a variety of audiences. I think that it should be possible for people who are not perhaps members of the Society for Neuroscience, not formal neuroscientists, to contact you, Kathleen, at the Dana Foundation for materials, and contact you, Heather, for more advice on how to approach this. But let me turn to each of you and ask what your response to this question would be.
Well, I can go ahead and answer how we're bringing in non-neuroscientists into our events. So we've had people from patient advocacy groups reach out to us, and we are including them in some of our brain fairs as ways to talk about, on a personal experience level, what happens when you or a family member experiences some kind of disorder with the brain, and what that means and how to prevent it, and groups to go to for treatment and support and things like that. And we think that's a really great way to get people involved. And another thing is we are asking those people to be involved with things like, we're going to start a blog on our Come Be Brainy website. So we're really interested in personal experience about the brain, not just the scientific experience that's going on in the lab.
Good.
And I will say that obviously Brain Awareness Week partners are not just neuroscientists at universities and colleges and hospitals. We do have a range of partners from K through 12 schools, and so yes, it may be a science teacher, but it's not a a person working in a research lab. That's not the only, those aren't the only people who can participate in Brain Awareness Week. And as Heather mentioned, also we do have a lot of outreach and advocacy groups, which in a lot of cases are run by non-scientists. So there definitely are opportunities for a non-scientist to participate in the campaign.
Good, good. Heather, here's a question coming in for you. When you are interested in establishing collaborations for organizing various events at Brainy, how do you reach out to different audiences? In principle, one has undergraduate students, graduate students, postdoctoral fellows. Here, of course, I'm thinking largely about the academic community, which is a big focus for us here at San Diego, and of course also faculty. How do you reach to these different groups, and what success do you have across the the spectrum of different colleagues?
Well, we have reached out to all of these groups through our administration. So I'm lucky to be part of the NYU Neuroscience Institute, which is a really great organization with really great leadership who support our outreach activities. But before being here at NYU, I was at Columbia University for my graduate work, and we also had the support of our faculty, including Carol Mason, the now president of SFN. So it is really important to get the buy-on of the people on the top, but I think you can do it without that. So at NYU, we have two campuses, so the Medical Center and the undergraduate campus at Washington Square. And the undergraduate campus has a really great neuroscience group, and so I was just put in touch with them through some of the undergrads volunteering in our labs, and they're helping me to spread the word and get some of their members to be involved. The graduate community, quite often it's emails and flyers or just going up to people in the hallway and telling them what I'm doing and getting people excited about it. And I have found that once people get involved, they are likely to do it again because they realize just how rewarding it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I can second that. Here's a good question related to your answer there, Heather. Our audience member writes, I am a teacher and our school's STEM coordinator. We do week-long celebrations chock full of special sessions, lunch demos, parent outreach, middle school outreach, and invite speakers in both virtually and physically. Are there any ideas on how to reach out to interested neuroscientists to speak virtually to our students here? And I think here I would jump in and then turn perhaps to you, Heather. But I think that it's possible to identify on the SFN website neuroscientists who are in the local geographical area of the in which one finds oneself, and this provides a way to begin to contact them and see if they would be interested in speaking to students. We've had very positive responses here in San Diego, where we have a big community of neuroscientists. How would you speak to that, Heather?
I would say the same thing. I would say go on to the SFN website or your local university or medical center and look up the contact people in the neuroscience departments. Quite often, actually, universities do have outreach programs within their neuroscience groups, and they can help you get in touch, and I think SFN is a great resource for that. If you're a partner for Dana, look up partners in your area and see if there is anyone who's already has events going on, and they would be great contact people to start with.
Good, thank you. Another one of our audience inquires about the regulations regarding laboratory tours that involve animals, such as, for example, rodents used in learning and memory experiments. This is really, I think, a key question. One would like to bring students and a broader audience into the lab to have them see the real process of science and scientific experiments. But there are issues here, and I'm sure you've dealt with those, Heather, in the activities that you've mounted there in New York City. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Well, in general for us, actually, unfortunately, the answer for any laboratory that has rodents is that you cannot have the public interacting with the animals. They would have to go through all sorts of training and such, just like you would before you start your work. And that's been the general response from people in my administration. If you're just doing laboratory tours, though, without the animal component, then again, you should be looking to your administration and just making sure that you understand the guest policy, because there have to be rules for safety, for everyone's safety.
That's a good point, Heather. We have a similar situation here in that if it's a lab tour and the animals are not there, then there are various rules and conditions of this, but this can happen. But the actual conduct of the experiments is something that really we can't have the public coming in for. let's see, do we have other questions perhaps from our audience? This has been great to see people writing in and giving us good leads. I have to say that it's been exciting in the past year and a half since the launch of BrainFacts.org to have enormous numbers of people coming in on the site and taking advantage of the resources that we have there to educate themselves and others about the brain. Well, at this point, then, perhaps it's time to wrap things up. It's been exciting to have the presentations here and to have the good questions from our group. All of this has been recorded and will be accessible later. So I want to thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Heather. Thank everyone who's been online with us here. Whether you're a first-timer or an experienced supporter, we hope that this information will be useful. And we're, of course, looking forward very much to Brain Awareness Week, March 10th through March 16th. Thank you for helping to bring BAW into your community. If you have further questions, please email Heather or Kathleen, and you see their addresses here on the screen, or contact the Society for Neuroscience there at that URL. The slides and the webinar recording itself will be available, as I mentioned earlier, within about 3 days, perhaps sooner. Registrants will receive a link to an evaluation. We hope very much that you will give us some feedback about the webinar. We'd really like to hear how you felt it went. And we hope that you'll connect with others about BAW and continue this conversation on NeuroOnline, on Twitter, and on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. You can receive the recording and the webinar slides on www.ssn.org/webinar archive 48 to 72 hours after this webinar. Thank you.